Hello, I'm Carol Off.
And I'm Tom Power. This is Q. Today, open mic Cole. Since his career-making performance as Omar Little on The Wire, Michael K. Williams hasn't stopped whistling while he works. But his roles on HBO's Boardwalk Empire and The Night Of are just part of the story. He'll join me to talk about defining himself as an actor and redefining himself as an activist and advocate.
Flashes of brilliance, glowing reviews, and dazzling performances have made Halifax's neon dreams shining stars on the Canadian scene. They'll be in the Q studio to perform and talk about their upcoming debut album and to illuminate us about why they want to be a shining example in the fight against sexual misconduct in the music industry.
And facing off. With the 50th anniversary of As It Happens just around the corner, we've got host Carol Off on. There's an off chance she'll provide some off-color insight into what makes that long-running program get its offbeat sound and discuss whether my constant offhand remarks about her have been offside. Cue the Thursday edition, radio that picks up where it left off. Oh, that was a real dream for me. I'm not going to lie to you, Carol. That was a dream for me.
Tom, is there a single off pun that you missed? I'm not sure.
I think we got them all.
But just off the record, can I just tell you something?
We'll turn the mics
Don't do it again.
This week, As It Happens, the CBC's beloved current affairs radio show celebrates 50 years. That's 50 years of bringing news, stories, and of course, puns into homes and supper tables across Canada. Right now, 5,685 kilometers from Reading, England. I'm thrilled to say that Carol Off, host of As It Happens, joins me live in the Q studio. Hi, Carol.
Hello, Tom.
Is that Pavlovian to hear that theme song? Do you feel like you need to go to work right now?
You know, that's of course the modern version, right? And then when we changed that, because people don't even remember now that they were ready to come down here and rip my throat out.
Why?
Because the old theme could not be changed. You could not touch that.
Right.
The old flute sound, the Mo Kaufman, the original theme music to As It Happens. And now, I listen to that thinking, gosh, it's just people, if we changed that, they'd come down and rip my throat out.
Yeah, people get used to something, don't they?
They do,
Yeah.
and they love that theme. I mean, people have been dancing in their kitchen to that for years.
Can you take me back to the first day you hosted As It Happens? Do you remember sitting in the chair and hearing the theme?
I remember being so terrified because I actually went to wind it back even further. I remember being in university and being so bored with the music on the radio, and I was turning the dial. We had dials then, and I'm dialing it around, and I come across this sound. There's like people talking, these voices, and this woman. She was like so cheeky and irreverent, and she was like trying to nail some guy's feet to the floor about something, and it was As It Happens. And I thought, wow, that's an amazing. And so I didn't stop listening to CBC then. If someone had told me at that point, if someone had told me I was going to live on Mars one day, I'd say, yeah, that's possible. If someone said, you will one day be sitting in that chair hosting that show, I would say, you are crazy. That's never going to happen. And so that was what I was thinking that first day. I was sitting in there going,
I'm so glad. We'll talk about this later, but speaking as a former guest host who was absolutely terrified because I tell you one thing about the show is it just starts. It starts and that theme song goes and you're doing that live and there's no going back at that point. No. There's no I'll take it again. We'll talk more As It Happens a little bit later. I feel like I might owe you an explanation.
I think you do. And it was nice of you to come and try to apologize last night in the studio.
Yeah.
And you come to and also to try and make amends, but I don't think there's anything you can do at this point.
So if listeners to the show will know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, throughout the history of Q, especially over this season of Q, I've been dropping Carol Off's name a lot in ways that are, how do I put this, and still keep my job on the CBC, questionably accurate. Take a listen to this. I knew someone who had the word sexy tattooed on the back of her shoulder blade, but it was in the Pepsi logo and spelled SCXSI.
What happened to her?
I don't know, but Carol Off from As It Happens.
Oh, she's doing great.
No, yeah,
she's
doing really
branding
well.
herself.
The Baroness Von Sketch Show Facebook page has become a space for your fans to tag each other in videos and for people to connect. We found this post that says, "Dear ladies of Baroness Von Sketch, you have changed my life in ways you can't begin to comprehend. I laugh until I cry each time I watch your show. Thank you for keeping me laughing. Sincerely, mom of two who cherishes those 30 minutes of alone time with you."
Oh my gosh.
That's so awesome. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. What's
and
her
thank
name?
you.
Do you have her name?
Carol Off from As It
That's
Happens.
Carol.
Carol Off.
I got a hard one for you now. Host of As It Happens, Carol Off.
Oh, Carol Off. Oh, yes. Of course, her actual name is Hoft, but Newfoundlanders don't pronounce the H. So for a year, she was a Carol Hoft, but they say Carol Oft now in Newfoundland, Labrador. Now, of course, As It Happens, she was actually spent a lot of time in Newfoundland in the 70s because she used to date Pierre Trudeau, and she came down with him, and the two of them were on the go, and then that she actually got screeched in when he kissed her after kissing the cod, therefore making her a Newfoundlander.
I'm looking forward to Carol Off's eventual libel lawsuit against me. I've talked about her so many times in the show. Carol, I saw her in the hall yesterday. I was a little bit afraid of her.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
I know.
It's
I'm quite fond of you, Carol. I think you're the best in the business. So
That's so funny. But, I don't get to hear the show because I'm already working on As It Happens. But I would immediately get people saying, I didn't know you were a Newfoundlander. I didn't know your name was really Hoff. I didn't know you dated Pierre Trudeau. I didn't know. And then people say, and then
I didn't know you were a reunited member of Fleetwood Mac. Was
that
another
was the
one.
Fleetwood Mac one, and I was gobsmacked by this. But the one that was all the people saying, "Hey, can we see the tat? Can we see the tat?"
God.
And how do you take that one back? Right?
I found out last night on As It Happens, I got it wrong. It's Jeff Douglas that has the tattoo.
When you came to visit us, I just want to point out, that the real estate you have here, because this is really spectacular. What this room you have, and you saw what we lived. We were in a broom closet.
Yeah,
upstairs,
you were, and Enright was banging on the door saying, "I got to do the monologue the whole time." They do it under duress up there. I don't know how you guys survive.
Protein sweat.
Yeah. So you're going to give us a Q block party. Today, for regular listeners, know that's when we get actors, authors, notable Canadians to play us the soundtrack to where they came from. You're going to take us back to those early radio dial days where you were listening to As It Happens going, maybe I'll be on Mars, but I won't be there. London, Ontario in the 1970s. So why London?
Because that's when I really discovered music, other than children's music. And I remember, the sound of London, I think it actually still is a kind of rockabilly sound. And what you were hearing at that time was something that, I guess Ronnie Hawkins was really bringing to the city in the early 70s. And he had a bar, he had a tavern, and he played in taverns. And we used to, I was going to Catholic Central High School downtown.
Okay.
So we and the girls, we'd cut class, and we could go down to Ronnie Hawkins' Tavern, and they might as well have had a sign on the door that said, "We serve minors," because we were kids, man, and we would be wearing our uniforms, which were, rolled up to, belts were like covered more than the uniforms we actually rolled up, and these knee socks and the blouse and everything, and we'd be in there drinking this watered down draft, and we'd see Ronnie Hawkins. Well, we thought it was Ronnie Hawkins. It could have been Santa Claus. They looked the same.
Randy Bachman, Santa Claus, Bill Blakey. It could have been anybody.
They're all just older men, right? And of course, when you think of it, we were just like teenage girls hanging out in this tavern all afternoon. So
speaking of, here's the first selection you brought in.
When I get off of this mountain, you know where I wanna go. Straight down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico.
How good, eh? That is the band with Up on Cripple Creek, a track chosen by my guest Carol Off from As It Happens for her London, Ontario block party. Carol, why that song?
Because this was Ronnie Hawkins. Well, the band started as his backup band, and he was American, but he moved to Canada. And this was, first of all, almost everyone, I think everyone except Levon Helm were Canadians, Ontario,
that's right,
Ontario boys. And the 70s was not just the time of this kind of music, but it was also really, really sort of nationalistic. Canada, it was like Canadian nationalism and homegrown talent, people that were from here. Yeah, they went to the States to get famous, but they were our people.
Neil Young and the like, yeah.
And so this was, and Joni Mitchell and Leonard Cohen, later on. But this was our sound, And so it really mattered a lot to us, these guys. And so anyway, they were Ronnie Hawkins' backup band, even though not at this time. But I like this. I like this cut.
I can tell you dig it. Nice to hear you singing along to it. There's another story I want to get out of you. Take a listen to this. That is the Guess Who with American Woman. Carol Off, when you grew up in Winnipeg, we're going to go away from London for a second to Winnipeg, Manitoba. You lived there for how long?
Well, I lived there till I was 10 or 11. and then we moved to Ontario. But Randy Bachman was our neighbor, right? The Bachmans were neighbors.
Really?
Yeah. They're just down, sort of around the corner and down on the back lane. You had to go down there, and then that was their house. And Randy and his family. We didn't think he'd amount to much, Randy was he was really kind of amazing for us because he jumped off the roof of his house once.
What? Why?
We don't know, but he was just whoa. I mean, all the kids were amazed by that. That's kind of why we figured he wouldn't last long. But and then here it was just so many years later, and we were dancing to this song, "American Woman," and again, very much a Canadian boy. And this song, American Woman, we belted out because American Woman, stay away from me.
Yeah, right.
And it was this whole idea that, United States, the bad guy. We're so good in Canada. We don't need you. Of course we did. But that was again the mood. And this song and him and that jumping off the roof of his house.
Little did we know you'd both end up working at the CBC.
There's that. I mean, three of us. There's mere coincidence.
I don't think so.
We're all hosts?
I like to think of myself as the Burton Cummings of our time.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. That CBC has not signed on to that tagline yet. Let's get back to London again. We're going to hear from my good pal, Baldy.
I came into town as a man of renown, to write a song about freedom, joy. The hall, it was rented, and I was presented as a kind of a singer most folks could enjoy.
I haven't heard that song.
Isn't that lovely?
As I climbed up the stair to the stage that was there,
We're supposed to play this down, but I won't do it.
Something was missing. I could tell by the vibes.
They're pointing to me to tell me to start talking, but I don't want to do it.
But you got to hear the
We got to get to the chorus.
Listen.
We have two.
Don't play me a rock and roll song. Don't play me songs about freedom and joy.
Play me a rock and roll song, or don't play me no song at all.
Oh my God, that is Baldy with rock and roll song. Carol off, why Baldy?
As the 70s moved on, I had this big sister, Mary Jean, and she was a folkie. She loved folk music, and so she started showing me around the town, and there was this amazing folk festival, the Home County Folk Festival, and Baldy was there every year, and that was in the 70s. That started then, and all these great acts would show up there, and then there was this funky little coffee house called Smale's Place, and then we could go there, and I was at that point smoking hand-rolled drum tobacco cigarettes and had my hair all wrapped up in a colorful scarf, and we were we were hip. We went from that kind of rockabilly knee socks and the the uniform to being groovy, just
Bohemians,
very bohemian, very
right.
hippie, and so and Baldy was the one act every year at the Home County that you just wanted to hear, and when everybody would show up to hear that Baldy song.
He's amazing. Baldy, if you're listening, and I know you are, shout out. So we have one last selection from you. I've known every song you picked out so far. I do not know this song. Take a listen. What is that?
Catchy beat, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
You were dancing a bit.
It was a candidate for new Q theme, I think. Yeah. What is this?
That's the Nihilist Spasm Band.
The Nihilist Spasm Band.
Yeah.
And what's the song called?
Who knows? They never had songs. It was a noise. It was called a noise band, and you know what? They're still around. But the Nihilist Spasm Band. Okay, so my latter part of the 70s, before I left for the Big Smoke of Toronto, I'd become an arts reporter. I'd gone really, really from bohemian to avant-garde.
Arts reporter. There's no money in that.
There's
Carol.
absolutely none. It's like it was covering wars. I realized later was really where it was at. But this London, Ontario was this amazing scene for visual arts. There were the critics were coming from New York to cover the scene, and it was Canadian nationalism. They called it regionalism, and there was James Rainey was writing plays, and Greg Curnow and Jack Chambers and John Boyle. Michael Snow would come and play his movies, things that would go on for hours where nothing happened, and we'd just sit there and watch and be amazed. And we talked about the meaning of meaning, and it was. it was just this avant-garde art scene. But the visual arts were really amazing in London. And so this, at the gallery where they all hung out, because they wouldn't go to the main gallery, the new art gallery, they would go to this other gallery, and they formed this, and anyone could play this nihilist spasm band tunes. And so we would sit there and, listen to this.
And pretend to get it? Or
pretend to get it and talk about it, and smoke, and
Oh, very cool. That's the nihilist. The song is called When in London, Sleep at the York Hotel.
Who knew? Yeah.
Good advice. And thanks a lot for the London, Ontario block party, Carol.
That was London, Ontario.
You made it.
And I left, but the music is still there. My sister and brother are still there, and my whole, all the kids in my family are still there, and they still go. There's a lot of music in the city, and they go.
So I'm speaking with Carol Off. She's the host of As It Happens, who's celebrating its 50th anniversary. You went from traveling the world as a correspondent, as you mentioned, covering wars, to essentially spending your life in a room with 2 microphones. What was the appeal to make the switch back then? Do you remember?
I was tired. I was worn out. What I was seeing out in the world was awful, and I just didn't feel I didn't feel it mattered. I didn't feel I was actually getting a message to people that made them care more about those people I was seeing. And then, As It Happens, is this show with such a big heart, even though it's a kick-ass show in many respects. It was that chance to tell stories that could actually reach people in a way that I thought they might care. And I needed that. I needed to feel that. I need to feel the love, and that's what the show really represented for me.
I'm happy you brought that up, because we have a couple of folks on our show who used to work on As It Happens, who left.
And they fled with their hair on fire from the friction of moving so quickly.
They were like, I need to get away from these stories. I need to do more stories about the meaning of opera. And one of the questions that they asked me to ask you is related to that, which is that you can go in that show from an interview about a horrific tragedy or a mother that lost their child to a beaver that's trapped in its dam to a pumpkin, the world's largest pumpkin in Brandon, Manitoba. How do you make that transition so quickly?
The thing is, they're all, to me, similar stories. And I don't think you can do them now for something completely different. Because they all are. Every single time somebody comes on that show, it matters to them. And when I'm out and about and I meet people and they say, I was on As It Happens once in 1972. And they remember, they cherish those things because they got to tell their story. And so my job is to draw that out of them, to have them tell the story that they won't get another chance to tell a large audience again, probably. But also then to nail someone's feet to the floor who doesn't want to tell the story like a politician. And so, I have this huge responsibility to them. And so I have to be in the moment for them, just totally in the moment. I think that's the only way to do it.
I think what I find beautiful about that, and I'm not going to do too many platitudes in front of you, but the reason I'm in such adoration of you at times is because I came into this job thinking that you had to be so cold to do this job, and I knew I wasn't. I knew I wasn't naturally a very cold person, and I said, well, this isn't going to work out. I'll be in there 6 months, and they'll say, get that softy out of here and bring in someone who's a little bit harder. But you've been talking about this recently with a post on Twitter and a little bit around As It Happens, that there is a humanity. There needs to be a humanity in everything you do.
Yeah, and for you, too. And we're going to start Mutual Admiration Society. But I think that's key to what you do, is you make people feel as though their story matters. And I hear that in you. Even in all your exchanges with people, you draw them out because they want to tell you things. And you also have this ability to make people feel they know you. And that's key to your success. People feel that, I think I hung out with him at school when I was a kid.
Put that nihilist spasm band on back now. I can't handle this. I can't handle it. But it's true. I mean, for your sake, there needs to be... I'm so heartened by the fact that you see all these stories the same as people sharing their stories. And sometimes you told the story about sometimes at the end of the interview just making sure that the person you interviewed is okay.
Because I know I'm not. And so if I know that I'm just a hot, wet mess and a pile of wet Kleenex on the chair, that person who's just poured their heart out to me and told me what happened to their child or told me how they were holding someone's hand while they died, and I'm not going to hang up. I mean, how can that happen, when I was in the field, I could stay. I could stay for a moment and have a cup of coffee or go for a walk with them. I could watch them. I could even return. But I just hang up here, So we all everyone in the show feels the same way. We just can't let them go.
So speaking of studio and speaking of the show, I thought we'd address another elephant in the room. Jeff Douglas, your co-host. We spoke to Jeff about his first time sitting down with you in the As It Happens studio.
No.
Take a listen to this.
I remember the first day that we came in. We were doing these publicity stills. I walk in the room and Carol's sitting and she kind of looks over at me and she goes, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey," and she's like, "We're talking about." She goes, "So here we go, I guess," and I was like, "Yeah, so here we go, I guess," and she said, "Have you ever worked on a daily show?" I said, "No, I've never worked on a daily show before, but I've done doc series and stuff where I've been out on the road 6-7 weeks at a time and been away from home for and I've done long days on drama shoots." And she's like, "It doesn't matter. A daily show is a different beast. A daily show is a grind." And I just thought, what have I done with my life? What have I done? But of course, 8 years later, with sitting across the table from Carol Off, and it's so amazing. My first impression of this serious and considered intellect and journalist, I mean, not that that's untrue, but also just one of the most compassionate, beautiful human beings that I have ever met.
That's Jeff Douglas, co-host of As It Happens. What do you say to that?
I'm going to cry. I can't say anything to that. I mean, this is becoming a mutual adoration society here. But Jeff's my partner. We sit in that room. He gets me going at the end of the day because we've done all these interviews, and he knows how tiring it is, how emotionally roller coastery it is, and he's just always there for me. I mean, he's immensely talented, and he's the voice of As It Happens, and so.
That is a hard gig. I've done that gig.
It is.
I did As It Happens as in Jeff's role twice, and I bungled it pretty bad both times. Oh yeah.
I'm surprised.
Well, we have one more question for you. It's the 50th anniversary of As It Happens. I'll say the show that makes a lot of us proud to work at the CBC. When we say, I'm proud to work here, it's usually because we're the home of As It Happens. And I mean, that's not an empty platitude. It's one of those kind of core shows. It's that show that reminds me of dishwash soap in my parents' house and doing the dishes. It reminds me of dreading going to piano lessons and hearing it in the car. But it feels like it's still as relevant and strong as ever.
It's so amazing you would describe it that way, because there's a woman I met the other night who said that As It Happens is what Canada sounds like. And I was puzzling that. And she said, it's the sound that was always 6:30 when Dad got home. And I said, and where Mom would say shush at the kitchen table because somebody from El Salvador or Berlin or South Africa was talking and you had to listen. And it was the sound in the car when you're going to hockey practice or piano classes or whatever. It's just what Canada sounds like.
Carol Off, congratulations on 50 years.
Thank you, Tom.